is I'd like to discuss something which is going forward to help everything. Is, and I want to do a full show on this, maybe in between our Monday show, is, do we think, based on the crowd you just heard, based on the way Rugby League is, based on IMG and what's coming, should we scrap the salary cap? Is it? We've talked about this, Mick, since we started, and Jimmy, more I sit on my own, I keep thinking, what are we restricting by having the cap? Do you think the same teams have won Super League for 20 years? They're probably going to win it for the next 20 years. What is the cap doing, guys?
Well, we'll show you what cap's doing. Warrington Wolves, 12 points, 16 points behind Saints, so it's not doing much. So
No, the same teams have won it.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily down to the cap. Look at the money that Leeds and Wellington have spent.
So what I'm saying...
So my point is, the argument for the cap is to keep it competitive.
Yeah.
Where this shows, don't matter how much you spend, it's how well you spend it.
But what effect is that having on the TV deal by not bringing the star players to our comp?
No, I'm saying release the cap because it doesn't make it any more competitive by having it.
That's what I'm saying. I agree.
Yeah. That's just another reason.
Do we know any reason why now? I keep thinking right now, is it down to somebody like Ralph who just walks up and it's his 10 year now, we've got another 3 year before he gives us another $500,000 pay rise? No. How do you sit there now and make a call as a man and say, do you know what, to IMG, right? IMG, and I come in and I say, tell me why you're not letting the cap go to whatever. Well, I want you to tell me why.
Well, let's be realistic. If you were, we know the rugby union cap's at 5-6 million. It's absurd. Obviously, there's got to be more players. There's 2 extra players on the field, and obviously, I know rugby union, they go with squads of 50, 60. Perhaps that's not the best example. But if you're realistically, Craig, and you're looking at that current Super League table and the teams that are in the Super League, how many of those realistically can spend above the salary cap? St Helens can. We know Wigan can. Huddersfield certainly can. Catalans, you'd put a question mark over because...
I'd say they can.
Well, Hull FC, again, a question mark. Castleford, no. Hulkingston Rovers, no. Salford, no.
I disagree with Hulkingston Rovers.
No.
Well, how would you know that? Well, I totally disagree with you there. I think OKR could spend more than the cap on a couple of marquees if they wanted it. The funds are available at that club to do that.
Right.
There you go. So you've just said that. So again,
there's enough that can.
I don't get it. Do you know what? What is it? Just like a simple conversation that we don't have?
I think for me, the biggest
Has spending above the cap at Lee and Featherstone helped that league this year? Because they've spent $1 million apiece.
Helped it league in what way?
As in people watching it more like, wow, boom, Blake Ferguson, boom, this. Has that give it a bit of panache?
It has, but at the same time it hasn't.
The clubs below it hate it because it's not.
Because look at the blowout score on Friday night. You've got Sheffield blown to the cleaners by 58 points to 4. You know,
I think the main argument for the salary cap is to keep it competitive.
Correct.
What this shows is that
salary cap isn't keeping it competitive.
Of course, it's a factor. But if most clubs can spend more, then let them spend more. In the Championship, I think it needs to be more careful because, or we just go, well, let's just get the clubs who've got the most money in the top level so we can make it even more.
Correct.
Because what's NRL salary cap going to next year?
9.
And what are we on?
1.8.
How do you retain the best players if the gap's getting bigger and bigger?
And that's why we're
that's another reason why we need to let them go.
We did a talk earlier on about the players. They were asking about Lewis Sandhill, Young Price decided to go, and I said my feelings on it. But I'm just looking. I'm looking now at the fans and the crowd and what the game. I'd love IMG, Mick, just to walk into the first meeting, sit down and say, right, guys, give me more than 5 reasons why we can't spend more than the cap now. What is holding you all back? Yeah. The days of Gary going in and saying, homegrown players, he had to do that to keep Danny Maguire. Yeah. He had to do that to keep things. I ultimately know that, and I ultimately know that's why it was brought in. But for now let's say, right, here's one for you. I'll give you one. St Helens, Mike Rush, yeah, big friend of the show, big friend of us, yeah. Said he'd come on any time. Mike Rush has won the last 3 grand finals. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm IMG, and I said to Mike, this system suits you because you get a lot of unders because you create your own players. You manage to bring in 2 or 3 good players, and you've got players who want to re-sign for Saints. James Roby, they've re-signed. They've got a lot more money. They did the Leeds model and it's worked. So if he's Mike Rush, he turns around and said, no chance are we changing this. But then I'm Warrington Wolves. Wolves, yeah?
We know they've got the money, Simon Moran.
And the other guy, God, I met him, a great guy, the car, who sold the car business, Stuart.
Yeah.
So Stuart and thing is, so Carl Fitzpatrick says, yeah, I'd like to spend 4 million next year. I'd like to bring in 4 world-class players. I'd like to bring in 4 of the highest paid players in the NRL, $500,000 apiece. We've got the funds to do it. We're not a bankrupt club. We'll put the funds in a separate account. What's your problem? I reckon IMG will go. Ain't a problem.
Correct, I agree.
The only problem is going to be when what your man Eddie Earns said. He said all the powers with the clubs.
Correct.
He didn't like it because he said they're making the calls for what benefits them.
Yes.
So everybody's in it. Mike Rush might go, no, I'm not having that, because that means that we've done ours right and then we get beat. Because they bring in the... Do you get me?
And I think that's for... And get the people to put their opinions in, but the thing, although I've gone, let's do it, does that then stop the pathway for the young ones? And that's what we don't want. We don't want that Lewis Dodds and Wellesby don't come through.
You can have 523,
yeah,
can't you?
I was going to say, if you release the cap, there should still be certain rules about number of overseas and number of homegrown.
100%.
To protect, because we don't want it that it means, look, you've done everything, you've been with the club forever. Like Man City, look at Man City. They've had 2 players in 10 years have come through their academy, and they spend hundreds of millions of pounds on their academy. But they still go and spend 50 million on a player when they've got someone who's not far off. We don't want to go to a mini version of that. And there's a couple from the Championship who could as well. So you're probably talking 10 times.
That's interesting,
and all of a sudden, we've got 10 that can, what's on the blueprint? 2 lots of 10, yeah.
Do you know what though? It could be right, couldn't it? It could be at that IMG. Somebody cracked a joke then and said, why don't they just put all the big spenders in that? Do you know what though? And I'm serious here, Mick. I sat and thought, what is holding it back? Why are MG having it bought? Somebody walks in and says, right, so what's the problem? So what is the problem? Why are you not doing it? Surely, business plan, you've got to have enough reasons not to do it. Yeah. And so in a business plan, you sit back and you go, too many risks.
Too risky.
I'm not willing to do that. I can't see anything on here. Which, do you know what? Here's one for you, Mick. Toulouse is a wealthy club.
Yes.
So Toulouse have gone down this year because they don't create their own academy. Let me finish.
We don't know if they have gone down. We suspect they will. Yeah. They've still got to play Wakefield at Magic. They win that game, it is back on.
Right. 6 points in it though, right?
Struggling.
Let me finish. So they've got an owner or a city. Somebody said that the city own it, so the mayor and all the money.
Yes, Cedric Garcia is how it works at Toulouse. I spoke to Cedric about it. Is they've got between 20 and 30. Not so much a lottery-based system, but similar to how David ran the Toronto model, they've got a certain amount of a cooperative all putting in X amount of money.
Right.
So there's not just one money man.
Yeah.
It's basically, like you say, it's like a community, the city, because obviously Toulouse Olympique, the stadium, community, it's fantastic.
100%. So Toulouse lose Super League licence this year and they go into the Championship next year. But if somebody had said Toulouse at the start of this year from IMG, said, right, okay, we're going to take the cap to whatever you want. So Toulouse turned around and said, you know what? It's so important that we stay in Super League this year. A, for French Rugby League. B, for Toulouse as a identity in that. We're going to spend $3 million. Don't guarantee us anything, but we've got enough money here at this club to spend £3 million to keep us in Super League.
Yeah.
Is that beneficial for the game long term for that to happen?
Yes.
To build that there?
It is.
Totally.
I keep looking.
Well, you've answered it.
What are we stopping?
It used to be Gary Everington, and it's now St Helens. It's the people who want to protect what they've done, and they've worked very hard to create it, so you can see it. But like you say, how can a company come in going, well, you're slowly dying, something's got to change. The only way to change it, more superstars, higher level of rugby, better standard.
Yeah, let's have a Carl Fitzpatrick flying out on Simon and Stewart's money first class to Australia. Let him have a look at some NRL stars. Here you go, bring them over. Because I mean, one thing.
Just heard Paul Larkin, the CEO of the LKR, said to you, he thinks at least 8 clubs could take more than the cap.
Well, there you go.
And there's 4 in.
And I'm sure Derek. Yeah.
They're ready.
And I'm sure Derek would agree. Derek, we know you watch the show. I'm sure Derek, if there were no salary cap and he were guaranteed the Super League in a licensed 10 division or whichever one he fought.
Well, I'd like to do, Sam, on a show maybe later on this week. I think I'd like to invite a couple of CEOs on and get into that.
Yeah.
I think that's a debate that we need to help IMG and the Rugby League with. Love to be able to get a call to the Rugby League and get their opinion, but they won't do it publicly. But I'd love to be able to say, give us some inside knowledge. It'd be great, wouldn't it, if we could get Mike Rush on one side and then somebody like Salute whatever or the other who'll say, well, we want it.
You'd probably,
we need some for and against.
You'd probably, your best example, no disrespect, is you'd probably get a Michael Carter and a Carl Fitzpatrick on, or that's no disrespect to Wakefield, but we know Wakefield, they've got the loan repayments on the stadium. They're not going to be in a position without a money man coming in.
Just very quickly, going back to Toulouse, did they spend the cap before they lost Ford and Carolia?
Last year in the Championship, they
no, in the Super League.
In the Super League, no, they weren't at the cap.
So is that because they could? Because we're saying why didn't they? Is that because they couldn't get the players in because it was too late?
Yeah, it was too late. Yeah,
it's the same curse. Going up late.
There was the issue with the COVID vaccines, which is why a couple of
and obviously they lost two big.
But this year you're thinking, maybe 3 or 4 more players if they was allowed to invest in it. And do you know what? Why can't you? If you've got the money, why can't you invest in your own company? If you've got the money, why can't you invest in your own company?
For fairness, it's like any, it's fairness. But what it's showing is, it isn't the biggest factor of how much you spend, it's how well you spend it. And if we get left so far behind the NRL, we are going to keep losing top talent. So if we want to be competitive, we need to stay closer to the NRL.
Jimmy, I think it was deeper. I think it's even down to losing players to not want to play our game because it's just
not enough in it.
It's 30 grand and they're risking. I asked 4 players yesterday, mentioned Glastonbury. I said, never been. Why? Rugby times can't go. Yeah. So they're spending 15 years of life, cannot do anything like that, and some of them are on less than 40 grand.
Yeah.
Would you sacrifice your holidays, your festivals, your weekends, for everything for less than 40 grand? And a lot of times to be physically absolutely busted most weekends. So you're on painkillers sat there. So I think to raise the average wage, we need to put the cap up.
Yeah.
To get honestly, that's the one I worry about.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Players will pack in. They'll just say, you know what? Are you mad? Are you absolutely? And I tell you what, they'll do an all summer retire earlier because they'll start thinking, I'm not putting my body through this for what's on. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. So I don't see. If we could get a proper debate, and it'd love to do it in front of a live audience, but if we could, I want to see somebody convince me, a very learned guy like a Mike Rush, like a Gary Etherington, what would happen? Because it certainly wouldn't change who's won it different. Because the same St Helens, Leeds, and Wigan are only 3 clubs who've won it in how long?
Bradford,
20 years?
25 years.
20. He's mad in it.
20,
and Warrington are the ones who have been historically spending the cash and they still can't do it.
Yeah,
so it shows it's not the be all and everything.
And you've only ever had, outside of Bradford, Wigan, Leeds and St Helens, you've had Hull FC appear in a final,
Catalans.
Warrington in a couple, Salford and Catalans. So you've only had 8
and they're
teams.
Always big underdogs.
Yeah, you've only ever had 8 teams at Old Trafford in 26 years. It is
Did you say Huddersfield?
Huddersfield have never been there.
Been to the final.
Never been there.
Just Challenge Cup.
And there's only 4 that have won it. Bradford, Leeds, Wigan.
So again, I don't see...
Bradford.
Maybe we're missing something. We might be missing something.
Please, some learning some
it'd
fans.
Be good to hear some,
and it might be absurd to say Bradford, but Bradford's last appearance was in 2005. They've not been back since 2005.
If we bring... If Leeds Rhinos next year have done negotiations... and they brought in Ponga and Munster. Do we sell more TV views based on 2 of the greatest players in the world at the moment with over here?
Yeah.
Yes, you would do. Yeah.
Do we get more fans?
You would.
I think we get more sponsorship on shirts.
You would start to grow, yeah.
Because we're selling them.
Look, I remember Wigan.
And the only negative then is to say it's not fair them playing against Wakefield who were playing off a 1.3 cap. That's just not fair.
Well, that's the big argument. But it's like, we've got to move on. We've got to move on, and some clubs can do that. If it's time that some clubs can't keep up with it, do we keep treading water? That's what
if you're getting 4,000 at home, if you're getting 4,000 fans at home, and then you're bringing in Cameron Munster, Ponker, and throw me another Origin player in, just for thing, David Fafita.
Yeah.
And they're coming to play for Leeds against Wakey. Does Wakey's 4,000 fans increase?
Only by a couple of hundred. They're hardcore there.
So we're talking more for the TV deals, the panache.
For your bigger clubs, yeah.
Your big sponsorship,
Yes.
wanted Carl Fitzpatrick trying to keep an Hoover, a big
Because
PLC.
ultimately,
Look, who are the two players you'd pay to watch in this league, unless you're a connoisseur and you want to watch Lomax do the business? Jai Field, Evan French. Two most entertaining players in Super League. And look, we're going to do
Jake
well.
Connor in that.
Jake Connor on his day, but you're guaranteed from Field and French to see exciting,
attacking rugby league.
brilliant, entertaining rugby.
And would they be top 100 players in NRL?
Top 100,
Maybe 200.
Top 50.
yeah.
No,
I think we'd be in top 100. Yeah. Top
So if you were to go
but,
for
but
those,
I mean, that's
they'd probably say no.
but you're top, just about.
They'd
yeah,
probably say not a chance.
They'd be in top, yeah.
Bevan got moved away because he won't get a regular game, and so did Jai.
Yeah, physical, yeah.
They both
The
got
physicality,
got moved out for not getting regular games.
Well, I mean, I know. Well, that's just scary because if we're talking their two standouts and
I reckon they're 150 to 200.
You might be right, yeah.
So you would think
I think
about
on
what you
recent
could
form,
see over. If you see that,
yeah.
imagine if every club, if Paul Larkin said 8 of the clubs of the 12 could take it. Imagine each club having 2 of them, 2 Jai Fields. And Bevan French, but a better version.
Yeah.
No offence to them.
Yeah.
Probably a better version.
But the only way we get them is if we start doing this for 10 years, because the top players are going to go, we're not ready to retire yet, we're not coming. So they're not going to come until it becomes way better standard. So
Money talks, Jimbo.
it's true.
I disagree. If somebody said to you, listen, $500,000
it cost them
accommodation,
$1
I'll
million,
fly a flight,
yeah.
I think you'd be thinking, listen, my body wouldn't take it the same hammer as that. I think I'll be over like a shot.
But then you go back to the old, do you end up getting the ones who were just coming for a payday?